you visiting today?
Huh?
Why are you visiting today?
Well, we brought a lot of people with us, and more importantly, we brought the federal government with us because when they heard I was coming, they all came. They weren't going to come. They were to leave you abandoned, and now they're not.
And that is President Trump, as you just heard, arriving at the scene of that catastrophic train derailment in Ohio. Biden's Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg arriving at the scene a day after the former president and after weeks of questions about why nobody from the Biden administration or FEMA had been to the small town of East Palestine yet. And joining us now to discuss all of this is Florida Congressman Greg Steube. Congressman, first of all, you look great. So glad that you're doing better, too. And your story about that, by the way, the Good Samaritan who helped you is really wonderful. And you look terrific. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, getting better every day.
Yeah, you can tell. Wonderful to have you here. I got to get your reaction. You know, is it a little too late for Buttigieg and the Biden administration in supporting the people of East Palestine? Even when Buttigieg went there, he seemed so disconnected. He seemed so out of touch. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because you can just tell from his body language by watching that video feed that you just showed that he's completely, he doesn't care, that clearly somebody told him he had to go. And so he's just, you know, punching that little box and showing, okay, I'm going to show up, but I clearly don't care about being here. And I'm going to act like I care. And I'll talk to people for, 10, 15 minutes and then I'm going to leave. 40 days later, I mean, it's clear that this administration doesn't care about the people of Ohio. They care more about the people in Ukraine. They care more about the Chinese Communist Party. They care more about not putting America first, which shows you by Trump going there that he has always put America first. And it's interesting that the day after, suddenly Pete Buttigieg thinks that he has to come and be like, all right, well, somebody from the administration is going to have to show up because Trump showed up and showed that he actually cared. And oh, by the way, Trump brought actual supplies and aid and things that the people in the community needed. And FEMA, to this day, despite members of Congress asking them to get engaged here, is refusing to respond to the needs of that community.
You know, how much do you think that President Trump indeed did force the mayor's hand? Because even like the day before, he was asked by a reporter a couple questions about it. And you remember, he told the reporter, it was a reporter from Daily Caller, I need some me time. He seemed not even interested in going. And then lo and behold, President Trump is going and somehow he has this epiphany.
Yeah, and it just, just shows you that this administration doesn't care. If this was New York or California or a Democratic stronghold, they would have been there the next day. They would have been pledging millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. But because this is a Republican area and a Republican state, they could care less about what's going on there because ultimately they don't care about the majority of Americans. And they care more about their leftist progressive ideology than they do about the American people.
You know, speaking of leftist ideology, I want to get your take, Congressman, on another topic, because as you know, DirecTV dropped Newsmax from their lineup. There's been so many headlines about it. Why is that when conservative voices are silenced, they're calling it a business move? Are you seeing a double standard there?
Yeah, there absolutely is a double standard here. In that exact specific instance, you've got liberal networks that DirecTV is still carrying and actually paying them that have much less viewership than Newsmax does. I joined my colleagues in a letter to the CEOs of DirecTV, and I've asked the ENC, the Energy and Commerce Committee, to bring them in, put them under oath, and ask some tough questions. So I hope that the Energy and Commerce Committee will bring them in and put them under oath and ask them tough questions. You
know, your colleague on the Hill, Congressman James Comer, spoke with our own John Bachman yesterday about the DirecTV situation. Here is what he had to say, and I want to get you to react.
I have strongly encouraged them to meet with your CEO, Mr. Ruddy, to get this worked out, or else. So I think if anyone's ever watched the House Oversight Committee, any of our first read hearings, they have to ask themselves, do you really want to go in front of the House Oversight Committee? Because this is something that the 26 Republicans on the House Oversight Committee are very passionate about. We're all huge fans of Newsmax.
Do you believe it's going to end up in multiple committees? You mentioned the other one before, but do you think this is going to be a big issue? And what kind of message do you think this sends to the American people when they see this?
Well, and there you go. There's your committee chairman right there, basically saying if this isn't worked out, he's going to bring him in before the oversight committee. So there's congressional oversight getting involved here, which I think is good for the process. And hopefully it will encourage all of the parties to negotiate and work something out. But right there, you've got the words from the chairman that if it's not worked out, they'll bring those individuals in. I mean, Americans are sick and tired of this. We've had a lot of people reach out to our office who have DirecTV, who suddenly after Newsmax was dropped, was reaching out to us, asking us what we could do to get involved in this. You have the FCC and the FTC and all these agencies run by the Biden administration who want to do whatever they can to shut down conservative voices, and they'll use the government to do it. So if it's not resolved, hopefully Mr. Comer is true to his words and will bring those people in before the American people, put them under oath and ask them those tough questions.
And finally, I want to ask your take on something that President Biden said just a little bit ago. ABC News was releasing a little bit of their interview that they just did with him. And one of the things he said was, I'm not sure President Xi of China was aware of the spy balloon. He seemed to be very disconnected and unaware if even China was involved. What is your reaction to the commander-in-chief saying this? There was a spy balloon that went over America for 8 days.
President Biden is completely corrupted and compromised by the Chinese Communist Party. They have given hundreds of millions of dollars to his family members. This president allowed a Chinese spy balloon for 8 days to traverse the entire continental United States. It went over nuclear sites. It went over B-2 bomber sites, and they did absolutely nothing about it. And until the Americans started standing up saying, why aren't you doing anything about this? Finally, they shot it down, but after they had collected all the intelligence and satellite images and everything that they needed, they got sent back to the Chinese Communist Party, and had traversed the entire continent. So you have a corrupt and compromised president whose family members have been paid, and he got his 10%, according to some testimony of some witnesses, and they're not going to react strongly to the Chinese Communist Party because of it.
And of course, James Comer said there's a potential that they may be subpoenaing Hunter Biden, folks from the Treasury, a whole bunch, even the art dealers are saying some of the people who are purchasing some of his artwork. So it's going to be interesting to see what's ahead. Congressman Greg Steube, really great to have you here. And again, you look terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you very much.